I'm going to go over and hand this over to Richard Clark, who's going to be our curator tonight. Thank you everyone for being here. Super excited. So here we go.
Hi, welcome. My name is Rich Clark. I'm a member of the Dance Palace Art Committee, and our art committee provides opportunities for established and emerging artists to show their art publicly. Traditionally, what we've done is that we've encouraged artists who either live or work in West Marin to join our gallery and have a monthly show. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, though, the Dance Palace has been closed for 6 months, and we really don't know when we're going to open up again. Traditionally, we've had our support come from classes and events that occurred at the Dance Palace, weddings and concerts and plays, but we're not able to do that in person any longer. We had grants and donations too, and at this point, we're strapped. We're really working on trying to keep afloat, and one of the things that we're doing to do that is following the directions of the Dance Palace and what they did with their classes and their events. They're putting them online. We're able to have virtual classes and virtual events, but that doesn't give us the kind of community support, the financial support that we've had in the past. So I'll encourage you to consider making a donation by the end of this presentation. One of the things that's really been, what we got going on? Well, I'll get to that. I'm glad to hear that noise in the background because I wanted to lay out some ground rules. And so I hope I can get your attention to let you know that we plan, or in fact, we're in the midst of recording this event right now. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is please turn off your microphones. Hello, there's a piano playing back there somewhere. If there's anyone that can hear me, please turn off your microphone. And will everyone please turn off the microphone so that we don't have the distractions during the presentation. Laura Lynn, can you do a microphone shutdown for everybody?
It looks like Bonnie just did. Okay. I think we're
great. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to keep our mics off during the presentation. The other thing is that this is a recorded event, and we're going to upload it to YouTube. If you don't want to be in the recording or be uploaded to YouTube, there's an icon down at the bottom of the Zoom page that's a camera. Just click on that camera and it will turn yours off and you won't have to worry about that. We're going to try to keep the presentation to an hour. Carol Whitman is our artist, and she's going to be speaking about a number of her pieces. And with each piece, she'll give a little bit of an explanation and then open it up for questions. Those questions can be put in the chat. That's where we want them to go. We don't want you to turn on your microphone. We want you to put them in the chat. And Laurel Ann Riley, who is another member of the art committee, is our host, and she will get those questions to Carol. One of the unique features of Laurel Ann is that while she was born and raised in Point Reyes Station and on our committee, she's sequestered in Uruguay at this point, and she's running this meeting from Uruguay via Zoom. It's kind of exciting. So now I'd like to get on to a biography that Carol Whitman gave me and let you all know something about her. Carol moved to West Marin in 1971. She's been here ever since, with two exceptions, brief exceptions, one to Baltimore and one to Berkeley. She raised her son Max here. She's had a lot of jobs here, from school bus driver to medical assistant. And Edwin, while she was living here, after a health crisis that she was able to manage, she decided to go back to school, got a BA in nursing, and then went on and got a master's in public health. and stayed in the healthcare industry, delivery system, right up to retirement. And the thing that I wanted to add to this presentation is that Carol's made a major contribution, not only to this local community, but well beyond the boundaries of West Marin. And that was through her recruiting and training 75 different phone bankers to reach out to states in the South primarily that and counties down there that have a history of purging voters without letting the voters know. So the phone bankers called people with that were identified by an organization called Reclaim Our Vote and NAACP. And we told these people that they were likely to have been purged from the voter list. And this was Carol's training that allowed us to do that. We let the people know how they could get back onto the voters list and what kind of voting options they had from the standpoint of showing up at the polls or mailing in or doing early voting. I just think this is a real blessing. There were 41,000 phone calls made as a result of this from the 75 people that she trained. She's been very inspiring. 3 years ago, she converted her entryway in her house to a propagating room, growing flowers from seeds. And with that, she was growing flowers and making bouquets and working with colors and shapes and forms. And as of June 2nd, 2020, this summer, she came home from a walk with a handful of iris seed pods and 3 little puffball mushrooms, put them on a table in the garden and arranged them in a design. From that morning on, she's done this every day since June 2nd. And she's created mandalas that are phenomenal. And we're going to get to see them today. She found her genre. She found the artist that she wanted to be. Well, she wasn't able to do that before she really found something that spoke to her. The morning practice of gathering the plants, making photographing, editing, and sharing the mandala has been a practice for her. It's the silver lining to this era that we're all in at this time in her life. It provides a calm, quiet, focused, grounding to her mind and body and spirit in the present, in the creative process. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Thank you. And it's so great to see folks here. There's people here who've known me since I was a little girl, and people who've known me who don't know me. So it's a great mix. I also want to thank the Dance Palace for making this opportunity possible. As Rich said, I've just recently become an artist, and this is my first show. So it's very, very exciting. I'm going to talk about how I came to photography and using plants and the image of the mandala. My first experience of making designs with plants and things was in 1957 when my family, extended family, rented a house at Cape Cod. And there was a bunch of us cousins and everything. And my grandmother gave each of us a little sheet of glass. And we went out into this little woods and dug holes that were slightly smaller than the glass, and made designs in the bottom of the holes. And then we put the glass on top and covered the edges with a more plant material. And then we invited all the grown-ups to come and see our creations and pay us a penny for the view. And we called them penny pots. So fast forward to today, and I'm making these botanical mandalas every morning. I'm photographing them and sharing them primarily on social media, but also with some people who aren't on social media. And I'm wondering, is this my current version of penny pots? I think it probably is. In the spring of 2010, I bought an iPhone and took it to Paris and started taking pictures with it. I broke my right arm that first night, but from the photographs, you would never know it. iPhone photography is pretty amazing. And at this point, I thought of myself as someone who took snapshots. Pretty good snapshots, but then still snapshots. And then, as Rich said, about 3 years ago, I got serious about growing flowers. I made a lot of bouquets. I took their pictures. I took them to friends. I took them to the library every Thursday afternoon in Point Reyes, where I would go to knit. And I'm still growing flowers, and I'm foraging in the parks and in other people's gardens. I've actually had friends send me things from Southern California and from Hawaii. I just saw somebody come out with a towel around them. That was great. At any rate, there's a lot of things I can work with. The photos I'm going to show you this evening, as Rich said, are my response to what's been going on in the country, the pandemic, the Woodward fire, and the political turmoil we're all going through. Every morning I go out into the garden or one of the parks and gather materials for that day's mandalas. And these days I often use materials I've collected previously as well and add in more fresh perishable plants as the design develops. The process really connects me to nature. It makes me know where my feet are and brings me into the moment, away from my fears and my despair about this country. I'm really glad we elected Biden. I feel less fear now, but now we're working on Georgia, and many of you on this call know that we're doing phone banking every Monday and Wednesday, and that's my little advertisement for that. You can get in touch with me for that. I'd always wanted to be an artist, as Rich said, but I was 69 before I found my genre. And it just blows me away that it's happened to me. It just happened. And I kind of attribute it to the pandemic and the fire and the political situation. I don't think I would have been able to just make this, say, I'm going to go out and do this. It happened. And I've become an artist. It's totally unexpected. And I'm really grateful for it. And I don't want to stop. I want to do it every single day. The word mandala means circle or completion in Sanskrit, and it's a symbol that's used, as you guys probably know, in Buddhist and Hindu religions. And it's said that the drive to make these designs comes during times of intense personal growth. And this is definitely the case for me, and probably a lot of us have been going through intense personal growth in the last 8 months or 4 years. The process I usually start with a specific materials in mind, or a color combination, or a plant like a dahlia or teasels or something. My husband is sharing his workshop with me, and bless his heart, I've kind of taken it over. And I go out there every morning. These past few mornings, I've started a fire in a little fireplace, so it's warmer. The foundation of it all is a metal table that used to be out in the garden that has concentric circles of holes drilled into it. My tools are clippers for gathering the material or cutting off stems, or sometimes I even cut into the leaves. Tweezers to place them on the table into the design. And then I use a big paintbrush, artist paintbrush, to get rid of the debris. I use an iPhone 7 now to take the pictures, and there's a clamp that I can adjust on an arm over the table so I can take the pictures from above and not have it wiggle. And the camera makes it possible to adjust all kinds of variables like exposure or contrast, shadows, that sort of thing. They also use Adobe Lightroom for organizing the photos and making adjustments. So now Laurel's going to share her screen and I'll be going through them. I'll just reiterate that if you have questions, I welcome them, but please put them in the chat and Laurel will relay them to me. So we don't have too many of us trying to talk on Zoom. So this first one has an Asian pear in the middle and it's simply pretty. I just love the colors and the shapes. The skin of the Asian pear, if you can, when you see it close up, is just translucent and it's like pores. And then there's the clematis seed and pansies, fennel seed, snowdrops, and you'll see a lot in my work, hydrangea florets. I have a big hydrangea tree that I harvest from and take them apart. I like taking plants apart. Are there any questions about this?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Deb asking, how long does it take on average to create a mandala?
Probably about an hour, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes they really come together quickly. And sometimes I take them apart. You know, they start in one direction and have to be redone. So, but probably on average, about an hour. You want to move on?
Yes.
And this one, you'll see a lot of swirling there in the middle. Those are silk tasseled tree buds. And that's me getting my anxiety and my fear onto the table. And the swirling that goes on inside my chest and my brain is on the table. And then I don't have to walk around with it all day. I use those a lot. I also like really love using sunflower petals to make sort of bird wings or butterflies out of them. And there's also larkspurs, and another perennial favorite are those hazelnuts that fall off a tree in our yard.
Oh, sorry about that. There we go.
Okay. And you can see the holes that I put the stems through. That not everything has a stem that goes through there. The centerpiece does, but the swirly silk tassel tree buds don't. And those I adjust with tweezers, and I have a little tiny paintbrush that I move things around with too. You can go to the next one unless there's more questions.
We have another question here asking, do you visualize certain mandalas or just create them from what you find?
Pretty much I create them from what I find, though sometimes, like the other day, I noticed that a hollyhock that I'd planted a long time ago was actually about to bloom. And I hadn't expected that with the days getting shorter and all. And so I started thinking in terms of that. Sometimes it's, you know, how can I combine dried materials with fresh materials? It's different every day, definitely different every day, but I usually try to think about it the night before so I have an idea of where I'm going with it. Let's see, Gigi has a question, but I can't see the whole question.
Yeah, we have a few questions. I don't know if you want to go in chronological order or.
No, go ahead. However you think makes sense.
So we have another question asking, do you use putty or other material to get the right set and angle for things that roll like hazelnuts?
I've tried to do that with red cedar cones, and unless something is really, really rolly, it doesn't work very well. Sometimes I'll have a big piece in the center and it'll tip. And so then I'll put hazelnuts under it or something else, some other thing that you won't be able to see to hold it upright. But generally, no, I have some, but I don't use museum putty, but I don't use it very often.
Okay, there are a couple more questions in the chat. Do you want to answer them?
Now let's
Now?
go on to the next one so we can look at something else.
Okay. Great. Let me know when you want to hear them and we'll keep going with the questions.
Okay.
And also, I'm getting a request for maybe if you can point out which I know it's hard with a computer, but maybe give some sort of signal to which piece, like which parts you're talking about so people can.
Sure, I can go from the center out.
Here we go. Awesome.
Okay, so there's two I did on the same day every once in a while, either for fun or for to try to contain my anxiety and fear. I do two. This was done on August 23rd. We were in the midst of the woodland fire, and that's a dahlia in the center. And then those little wispy guys around it are celosia. There's also celosia around the outer circle, and I ripped them apart to make those little guys. And then the round ones are straw flowers, and those represent hot spots in the fire. And I was putting a little bit of green in there with the leaves and the silk tassel tree buds to try to contain the fire, make it surrounded by green so it wouldn't break through, but it wasn't being very effective. In my mind, I could see these bigger pieces of celosia, the red and orange around the outside, were breaking out. So go to the next one, please.
All right.
And this one was done a little later that day. This is smoke and flames in my mind. And it's got a lot of the swirly, that's a theme, getting the swirly of the brain down onto the table. This is a lot of petals from zinnias. The center is a zinnia laid on top of a begonia that my uncle gave me last year. And then individual petals on top of that as well. And then the gray and stuff is clematis seed heads, and then more petals. And then clematis seed heads at a slightly different stage of their development, and more petals. And as you can see, the green is totally missing. It was not going to happen. We weren't containing the fire. So go to one more, and I'll talk about this, and then we'll go to some questions, because they're kind of a series. So this was the 24th of August. I think of this as Water Day. We were sitting in our dining room, and watching helicopters over Paper Mill Creek, taking big buckets of water and taking it over our house and up the Limantour Road to the fire. So the horsetail fern in the middle is the helicopter blades. And the green blue around the outside is water. There's anemones and some calibrachoa and some calyxes of dahlias. I'm not going to go over each one of these, but the basic idea is a helicopter carrying water. And it was not successful, because that was the day that the evacuation warning turned into an order and we had to leave our house. But I took the table with us. So let's stop for questions. It looks like there's a few.
Yeah. So one of the questions is, where do you start? Outside in, inside out, or by the materials you're using that day?
Usually I try to start from the inside out, but sometimes I just have things I really want to use. This morning I used some eucalyptus sticks, and they were in a kind of a square around the center. and I worked out, and then I had to figure out what I was going to put in the middle. So it really varies.
Great. And then another question would be, are those holes diamond shaped as well as round?
Yeah. And there's some that you can't see in this one that are, I don't know how to describe them. They're a little bit different around the outside. And there's one round one in the center there. That's a Cresspedia globosa, which is the only flower of the ones I planted that bloomed, though I think it's perennial and it's coming along for next year. I see Heather saying, where did you get the table? Was it just serendipity? It certainly was. It was a table that I had out in my garden. It was getting funkier and funkier, and I ended up, the first ones I did, I ended up having to do a lot of cleaning up of the photograph because it was so modeled by the being outside all the time. But I brought it inside. Now it lives inside.
Looks like there's another question. I think it's about the table. Is this board the only one you use, or do you have many boards?
It's actually a tabletop. It's a round tabletop that's 2 foot square, and the whole 2 foot round, right? But the circumference is 2 foot. Thanks, Bob. And it's portable. We took it to Oakland when we had to evacuate. I guess you could make different boards and put different shapes of different designs of holes. Susan Tillett and I have talked about doing that and having a little workshop when we can all get together in the garden. But right now it's just the one. Somebody I see, Laura Demschroeder asks, was a second fire mandala backlit from underneath? No, it wasn't. It just had that glow from, I think, the clematis seed heads. Okie doke. I see one more question. How do you light the mandala for photographing? That's been a kind of I've learned a lot. Carlos Caparada has helped me, has sort of mentored me with photography, and it's been a challenge. I think I've finally gotten it right now. I have a bounce board which bounces light off, and I've got drapes up that I can move in the studio workshop there that cut the light that was too much coming from the windows. Let's go to the next one.
All right.
Whoop, it's not going.
Oh,
there we go.
there
This I think of as Sherry's. My friend Sherry Pies, who was here tonight, lives in Berkeley. And when she found out we had evacuated, she said, oh, come to my house and make a mandala from my garden. So we did. She lived about 3-4 blocks from where we were staying. And we went over with coffees one morning, and I collected all this and used her table to make it. This is the only one that isn't on that round one that I have. And I like this for many reasons. The least of it is that it's got all these succulents. We can't grow succulents very successfully at my house. It gets too cold and they get burnt in the winter. So that's what this one is about. And looking back on it now, I can sort of identify with feelings of being locked out of our house. We had a lot of great visits with old friends from when we lived in the East Bay, distanced on our friend's back porch, but it was hard to feel like we were on vacation or anything because we were evacuating and we didn't know what was going to happen. So let's see. Have you ever thought about having the photos printed and turned into mask designs? No, I haven't, but they would be pretty, some of them would be very cool mask designs. I have had them printed and I'm doing a book with them, which I'll talk about in a little while. How many pictures do I actually take before I decide? I used to take a ton of them. And now I delete more. I maybe take 4 or 5. I've gotten better at knowing which ones work. I have to make sure they're centered, make sure the light is right, make sure that I haven't bumped the table and moved something. That I'm sometimes look down and I found I messed up the design. Can you say a little bit more about the mandala as a symbol and form and how it drew you? It's round and it's completion. It's contained. And I've really felt the need to have beauty contained, especially since the pandemic started. I didn't consciously think of them as mandalas in the beginning, but that name kept coming up when I think about them or talk to people about them. So I think the containment and the beauty together are what worked for me. Let's go to the next one.
All right.
This one I'm not going to talk a whole lot about because there's some more that I want to make sure we have time to get to. This one feels very Scandinavian to me for some reason. And the thing I really like about it is that it's very ordered and it's a lot of deconstructed plant material. There's a red hot pepper in the middle and I've taken off petals around the bottom. Those are the orange things that come out both around the leaves and around the clematis flower, not clematis, the Peruvian lily, Astralmeria, which are the kind of russet yellow ones. And again, my favorite hazelnuts. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, I wanted to make sure we got to this one. This is one of my favorites, and it's my homage to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was thinking of her when I did this and trying to use elegant, somber, serious colors while still having beauty. And it's her, represents her lace necklace, rather collars that she wears. And I think the holes in the table really support that as well. In the middle there are petunias, and then around those are, and the green balls are anemone flower heads. There's white larkspur and russet red celosia, and then seed heads of a rhododendron bush that's in our yard. I really love working with seed heads. They're unpredictable and you can't make them stay very well, but they're really fun to work with. I see Susan Allen. Is the table made for this or is it my adaptation? It's an adaptation. And it just sort of happened. I came home from a walk with some seed pods from irises and some mushrooms, and I made a design on the table. And the next day I made another design. And I just started doing it every day. And within a week, I had my genre that I was committed to. But the table was just a little, like a cafe table. It's French, which I like, but that's neither here nor there. The table sometimes looks gray and sometimes purple. Sometimes it looks more green. It depends on the lighting I use and the adjustments I make to the photograph. You can't see it. It's more subtle here on purpose, but there's a more dark lighting in the middle of this with those shadows there. Let's go to the next one. This one's great. This is thanks to Susan Tillett from the Mesa Refuge. I'm making a book and I just sent 55 of these mandalas to my book designer yesterday, and I needed to write something about it. And I have a hard time making myself write. It just is like pulling teeth. So I decided I would make myself do it by signing up to the Mesa Refuge to do a 3-part series of writing, and the prompts they gave me really got me going. It was so helpful. And then it was also helpful to have friends help me edit it. But so this, and Susan said, you know, I'd love to see one of these as a labyrinth. So I did 2, both of them with the same gomphrena flowers. These are gompphrenas. They're they dry really well and they last a long time. And one of them has a dahlia in the middle and is very gentle. And the other one, this is my minotaur, the teasel in the middle. And this is a fun one. It's not really a mandala, it's a labyrinth. So, and it was hard because the table isn't particularly big. So getting it to work with just the materials that I had, I went small with these little gomphrena. And Susan and I, like I said, have talked about doing a workshop and having different foundation tables, or maybe just boards with different arrangements of holes in them that people could work with. We'll see. So I clear the table every day like a sand painting. Yes. It's nice to start over. Some days it's hard to take it apart. Some days when it's hot, they wilt in there and they're hardly recognizable from the day before. This morning, I'm using the last of the Astralmeria petals, and I'm gonna miss them. And some of them were still good, so I incorporated them from yesterday into today. So it's okay if I had to keep them day after day, I wouldn't have space to do them, and I really need to do a new one every day, at least one. So I don't mind, and they go into the compost for the most part, though the teasels I've had to be careful not to add their seed to the compost because we'll have teasels all over the place. Did I study horticulture? Oh no, Deb, is that Deb Quinn? I think it is. I've just been a gardener like you for years and years and years. And I had to look up some of these ones as I've used them in the art, but no, I didn't study horticulture. Next one. This next one is really fun. This is where you'll see those Astralmeria petals. There's 2 kinds here. On top is a chocolate Queen Anne's lace. And underneath that are Astralmeria petals turned upside down. And they're a little more stripy that way. And then there's the anemone seed heads, the green dots. And then those pink and yellow stripy guys are my favorite flower petal. They just make me happy looking at them. And apparently those lines direct the insects who are after the nectar into the nectar inside the plant. And then along the outside is those clematis seed heads. But somebody said this reminds them of a chorus line. So it's a real fun one. Let's go to the next one.
All right, and there's a question, I'm not sure if you saw it, but.
Go ahead.
All right, they're asking, say, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the temporary nature of the pieces you create, other than the photographs, which obviously are permanent. Is that a positive, negative, or both?
Oh, it's both, I think. I mean, sometimes I love them and I'm really glad I get to take a picture of them. And sometimes I don't love them as much. And actually I'll post them. I post them on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm always surprised that some people love ones that I think are just okay. And I've stopped worrying about if they're just okay, because I just need to keep doing them. And if I need to do another one on the same day, that's fine. But they're just fun to make, really fun. Do you sometimes plan ahead? Hi, Rebecca Andre. Or do you keep your mind blank when you begin? Sometimes I plan ahead. Sometimes I just look for color combinations. Sometimes something really needs a green, gray, green leaf or something, and I'll go out and search for that. Deb, how do you feel about your newfound fame? I'm not sure how I feel about it. I feel self-conscious about my newfound fame, and I'm also enjoying it very much. I'm enjoying sharing them with people, because not only are they soothing and calming to me and they're beautiful to look at, but other people are getting a lot out of them too. So, it's positive and negative. Do you find the work reinforcing or changing your color palette preferences? Sometimes it changes it. Sometimes I'll come across, I don't like purple. But I didn't used to like purple, I should say, and I really like purple now. It works with yellow in a way I never would have put together if I had just been pulling colors out of something. Let's go to the next one. And this one was really fun to do. And this one, I considered using museum putty for, but those are madrone bark, the kind that flakes off in curls like that, kind of like someone said it looked like chocolate chocolate cookies or something. And I tried to use the museum paste with it, and it was too fragile to do that. This has got a teasel in the middle, and to me, teasels usually represent difficulties, not with the mandala, but just getting the feelings that I have about what's going on down out of my body. So teasels, I use a lot of teasels. And then there's acorns. Acorns roll around a lot. I'd use them a lot more if they didn't roll around so much. And Japanese maple seed heads. And then the Japanese anemone seed heads. Madrone bark. And then somebody gave me some rose hips, those things that are on either side of the madrone bark or rose hips. And let's see and acorns in between the two white gumfrina. Do you create in other art forms as well as plants? Not really. I mean, I knit, but I never, and I like picking the color and the texture there, but I've never made my own patterns. So it's creating, but it's not coming from inside me as much as these are. And these are, I think, going back to the question about temporariness, the fact that they're temporary has let me let go of a lot of the perfectionistic things that I would have if I was trying to paint or draw or something. It just, these plants speak for themselves, and I don't have to be perfect about it. It's great. Let's go to the next. This one is really fun. I love this one. So in the middle and somewhat around the outside are cosmos, but then all those little things, those little pink and white guys, are petals from pink gumfrina, and the pink and white ones that are around all of the petals are, they're pink, and then I pulled out the petals from the center of them. And so I kind of made a newly deconstructed looking plant. It was really fun to do. It's hard to get all the petals to corral them in there. They wanted to go all over the table. But this one is just fun. And there's zinnia petals, rather cosmos petals, and Japanese anemone. I like things that I can use for the sort of the interstices, the little pieces, those little green guys, the Japanese anemone seed heads. There's also zinnias, which are yellow with a brown center. There's apricot colored dahlias, more cosmos, and then those celosia, which are the plume kind of things around the outside as well. Let's go to the next one. This one was very deliberate. People kept saying to me, you should make a time-lapse video. And so I knew in order to do a time-lapse video, I couldn't be quite as ad lib as I usually am. I needed to have specific things in mind. So I kind of drew it out just as shapes on paper with the different components. And I made a time-lapse video and I posted it to Facebook and I think Instagram. And then by mistake, I deleted it from my phone. And actually I thought about doing it again and I decided not to. The thing about the time-lapse video is that it's frenetic. It's so fast that it generates anxiety instead of calming me down. So if you're on Facebook, you can go and look at it there. It's fun, but I don't plan on making another one. And this has got marigolds in the center, and then the first tier, and then snapdragons and blue marguerites and those wonderful little pansies. The little red dots there are honeysuckle berries that grow down the street from us here. And the red with the green leaves are gomphrena that I left the leaves on. Oftentimes I cut things off and rearrange stuff. What flowers has this work inspired you to grow more of? That's a great question. I was just looking at seed catalogs the other day, thinking about that. I really like growing larkspur and I like growing snapdragons. They're pretty reliable to grow and they come in a bunch of different colors and you can take them apart or leave them together. Hollyhocks I'd never grown before this year, so I'm going to keep growing them. What else? My friend Jill who works at Bellina's nursery gave me a big Rosa rugosa that has big white roses that I haven't actually seen yet. But she said the rose hips from them are huge and those are going to be used. You'll see them next year. Ginny, hi Ginny. Jenny Irving just asked a question. She and her husband Larry gave us refuge in Oakland and the full use of their yard and neighborhood to forage. Are these images all electronic? How do you determine which ones to print and what material do you print them on? I take a picture of each one of them and I went through, I think I have 130 or something that since I started. I'm not exactly sure because some days have more and any rate. I went through all of them for this show and picked 17. It's hard to pick. And then for the book, I went through and I picked 55 and I promised my book designer that I would stop on election day. I would stop not taking pictures, but I would make that the brackets of what was going to be in the book. So I wouldn't keep adding and adding and sending him new photographs. And actually, since I picked those 55 and put a spreadsheet together with a description of all of them, I'm really liking the ones I've done since we defeated Trump a lot. So I'm not going to have another book and then that I know of, but I am going to have a show at Toby's in April with my son Max, who's a painter. And I'll have to go through and pick those. And I'm going to put together a website so people can go and see what's there. And if they want something that isn't available in some other format, they could get in touch and order it that way. But I'm not quite there yet. So we're getting closer to the end. We've got 3 more to go. Let's go to the next one. This one, I call this aiming for calm. And it's got horsetail fern tips that I cut up. And then as they dry out, they become less green. And then my friend Gail gave me a necklace of these clay beads of scarabs that have a glaze, that lovely turquoise glaze. And I broke it apart and started using them. And I love the contrast of the yellow and the orange and the turquoise. It just makes me happy, makes me very happy. So I had a really good time making this one. And there's a cosmos in the middle, an orange one, and then around the outside, there's more yellowy ones. Some Calibrachoa, which are around the outside, the orange stripies. And then clematis seed heads that are just recently gone to seed. Later on, they get very fluffy. Let's see, what else? Tansy, those yellow dots in between all the clay beads are tansy. And I got that from, I think from Deb's yard, I'm not sure. Okay, the mandala photos on the wall behind you, are they the size you sell? That's one of the sizes. I was going to talk about that later, but I'll talk about it now. I'm going to have 2 different kinds of formats. Paper, which these both are. This one is that Asian pear, and this one here is a nice anemone, but the photograph itself isn't good enough. I'm not going to produce it. I did a few to see what they look like, so I would know what I was going to be getting and giving and selling. I'm going to do them in as a 12 by 12, a 20 by 20, and a 24 by 24. They blow up really, really well. Ginny and Larry in Oakland have a 24 by 24, and the detail in it, it's metal, it's not paper. I don't know if you've seen, Carlos Parada does wildlife photography, and he prints it on aluminum, and the dye impregnates in the aluminum, and they just have a luminosity that fits really well with these photographs. So, but they're more expensive. So I thought I would do some on paper. These are on paper with a acetate backing to keep them rigid. And then the metal ones are metal, and they're also those same 3 sizes, 12 by 12, 20 by 20, and 24 by 24. And Laurel Ann is going to put my contact information up in the chat. I think she has already, but she'll probably do it again at the end. And you can get in touch with me if you're interested in any of these. And also say that a portion of the sales go to the Dance Palace. There you go. It has my email, botanicalmandalas7@gmail.com. And I hope you like them, and I hope we can donate a bunch to the Dance Palace. My only regret in being virtual, it's kind of fun to be doing this online, but being virtual, you can't see what the metal ones look like and what the paper ones look like. You just see them online here, and it's quite stunning. The Toby show, you'll be able to see them both in real life. So let's go. We have 2 more, I believe. How are we doing on time? Well, we're almost out of time.
We'll probably have maybe time for this for one more. I don't know
Okay.
what you think.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Whether you prefer this one or the
No, I love this one. This one uses bark, and I love bark. It's a very, I can do so many things with bark. And this is madrone bark directly from the tree, not those cookie tweel, chocolate tweely guys. And every other one is turned over. So the brown is what's the bark that's up against the inside of the tree, and the silvery gray is what shows on the outside. And then there's little daisy petals that I put on top of the dark ones, and some zinnias. And in the middle, a pansy. Thank you, Susan Tillett. And my favorite swirlies, silk tassel tree buds. So this is more recent than those earlier ones, the ones we started with. These are all in chronological order. They're not day after day, but they're basically started at August 1st, and this is October 16th. So you can kind of see some of the progression. So thank you, everybody. I'm really glad we did this. It's very exciting. And thank you for coming.
I'm going to pass it over to Rich here. One moment.
Yeah, I'm going to step in here for a second. Carol, this was fabulous. I just am able to lose myself into the center of these beautiful mandalas. And I'm really glad that you gave us all a chance to enjoy them too. And thank you to the audience, to the participants. This was a group process. And so thank you all for signing up and coming. Next month, we're going to have Sarah, let me check, local photographer. And this photographer's another one in this community that's a well-praised wildlife photographer, Sarah Killingsworth, and well praised by Carlos Parada, who is our local resident, amazing wildlife photographer. So stay tuned for that date and time, and I hope we'll get to see you back here. Have a great night. Again, thanks for coming and being a part of this. Oh, and thank you, Laurel, for hosting. Back to Laurel.
Yeah, really, Laurel, we couldn't have done this without you. And I just saw it is recorded, so that's going to be nice to be able to look on YouTube. Yes. I'm a rock star, finally.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for sharing your amazing art. Thank you to the Dance Palace Art Committee for your creativity and putting on these events. This was amazing. And as Carol mentioned, this is going to be recorded. It's going to be up on the Dance Palace YouTube channel, so you can check it out. And if you enjoyed this, and if you want to check out maybe materials that Carol used, or what dates they're from, the gallery is going to be up on the Dance Palace website. I shared the link there in the chat. And last thing is, if you want to support the Dance Palace, I put a link to donate in the chat. And you will be receiving an email tomorrow from the Dance Palace with all this information. So don't worry, you don't need to be rushing to copy all the links. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll see you next month for Sarah Killingsworth's art show, and have a great night.